Devaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanati
Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Lavikatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhalvitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So, welcome to our first Friday session of 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. Wish everybody a very wonderful Krishna conscious 2021 and a year in which you can make great progress in our spiritual journey. So we've been discussing the chapter entitled The Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness, and talking about how the body is a field of activities for the soul to try to perform various activities, but that the soul is independent of the body, and it is situated within this body in the material world due to one fundamental misconception. And that misconception of the living entity is that it is the supreme enjoyer, the independent enjoyer, which means, when we think we can enjoy separate from Krishna, it leads to us acquiring a kshetra, a body. And thus we try to enjoy, and we find unlimited setbacks and frustrations and disappointments and endless miseries. So it is this false understanding or belief that we are the independent enjoyer that leads to this very difficult situation. So Krishna has spoken in the 22nd verse that the living entity in material nature follows a way of life enjoying the three modes of nature. So the living entity is an enjoyer, but it is a dependent enjoyer. And the reason it is a dependent enjoyer is very simple. That we, as the living entity, have no facilities that we have brought into this world to enjoy with. So everything that we are trying to enjoy has been given to us by the Supreme Lord. So if we try to enjoy independent of Him, we are no less than thieving. Just like we gave the example last time. If you go into somebody's house and they have some facilities to enjoy, nice TV, pool table, a wonderful kitchen, you can't enjoy those things without the owner's sanction and cooperation. So similarly, if we as living entities try to enjoy the material world without Krishna, we are no different than going into somebody's house and trying to enjoy their facilities without their cooperation. So this misconception of the independent enjoyer is what has led us to this position. But we should not for a moment forget that actually we as all living entities are meant to enjoy. And there's a fundamental reason for that. Because Krishna has only one activity, and that is to enjoy. And we are His part and parcel. So by default, we are also meant to enjoy that. Just like if in a gold mine, there is a gold luster. Each particle of gold also has luster because it comes from gold. So the qualities of the gold mine carry forth in each and every particle of that gold mine. Similarly, the living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So the qualities that Krishna possesses are also present within us. In small quantities, but in similar quality. So this enjoying propensity of Krishna is thus equally present within all of us. So the question is not whether we should try to enjoy, it is only how to find this enjoyment. And this enjoyment can be had only when we recognize what Krishna is telling us now in the 23rd verse. So let's read the 23rd verse and discuss.
Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer, permitter, and who is known as the super soul.
Report.
It is stated here that the super soul, who is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity, because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one. They think that there is no difference between the super soul and the individual soul. To clarify this, the Lord says that He is represented as the Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities, but as the witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and He is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and the Paramatma are different. The super soul and the Paramatma has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, He is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is bhukta, or the sustained, and the Lord is bhokta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and He is staying in them as a friend.
The fact that every individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and both of them are very intimate, related as friends. But the living entity has the tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate nature. And because he has this tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity can be situated either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend, the Super Soul, stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the individual entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual life. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife and the conditioned nature. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instructions for within from without. From without, he gives instructions as stated in Bhagavad Gita, and from within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in the material field are not conductive to real happiness. Just give it up and turn your faith towards me, then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance towards a blissful eternal life of knowledge.
So Prabhupada is explaining very clearly here that what is the key to our happiness? What must we do?
Turn towards the Lord.
Just give it up and toward your faith towards me, then you'll be happy. Right? Yeah. And the reason is given at the end of the first paragraph. At the end of the first paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining what is the position of the individual.
It's finite, and it's not like
it's finite. But
finite.
In the last sentence, what is the position of the individual?
He's sustained. He's dependent.
Right. Now, is that we sometimes think, no, I'm independent. Right? We strive for independence. But how can we factually understand that we are sustained, we are maintained by someone else?
I mean, from the air we breathe to water, like things that we receive, it has to come from somewhere.
So if we analyze our basic existence, forget about our enhanced, just a basic fundamental existences, right? We need air to breathe. Anybody knows how to create air, oxygen?
No.
It's available in nature, right? To the extent we don't screw it up, it's available in nature, right? So we may not know yet who is provided within nature, but we know at least ourselves as individuals can do nothing to create the air we breathe. How about the foods we eat? Can we survive? You can have billions of dollars, world fame, most beautiful, most intelligent, but if you don't have food to eat, are you going to be happy?
No.
It's the most basic need, right? So, without sunlight, can you grow even a single grain of rice without sunlight?
No.
Without rains? You say, no, I'll get some water from the, earth. Dig a hole and pull some water. Eventually that will run out. You need rains to provide fresh, new water. Soil. Well, I just go outside and put it in some soil. It was who created and provisioned that soil. So when we analyze at a very simple level, we see that we are fully sustained. But at least we can acknowledge something beyond ourselves. We are not our own maintainer. We are dependent, at least we can see in the immediate step, on nature for our existence. And the question would then become, well then who is arranging nature? And of course that is the Supreme Lord. Because nothing is done without some person behind it. So our position as being sustained is very important. It means that we are the enjoyer, but we are the dependent enjoyer. Because Krishna has said in this verse, he is Purusha Paraha. It means he is the transcendental enjoyer. So now why is Krishna the Bhokta or the maintainer? How is he the maintainer? How is Krishna the maintainer? Why is he the maintainer?
Because like without him, like he is like the one who keeps everything like in check, and because otherwise, like if like the planet's like misaligned by a little bit or something like that, there could be like catastrophic damage.
Yeah. So he is maintaining everything. Right? Even a slight change in the orbit of the Earth would create, as you said, catastrophic changes. Probably the end of our existence here. The climate would change so severely that we would not be able to live in these bodies, at least. Right? So Krishna is arranging everything. And because he is the arranger, the maintainer, it also makes him then what type of enjoyer?
Supreme enjoyer.
Right? Just like if you are the owner of your house, then relative to somebody who knocks on your door, you are the supreme enjoyer of that house because it's yours. You are the maintainer of it. You are the arranger of your house. So Krishna being the arranger, the creator of everything around, it makes him the transcendental enjoyer. So as soon as a living entity fails to see that Krishna is our maintainer and permitter, we struggle in existence. So in the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, the Lord is very eager for us to do what? What is the Lord eager for us to do?
Turn towards him.
To turn towards him. To return back home to the spiritual world. And why? So that Krishna can give pleasure to all of his devotees. Krishna enjoys giving pleasure, not taking pleasure. His enjoyment is in giving happiness to all the living entities. But what keeps us here within the material world?
Our tendency.
Whose choice is it?
Ours.
It's our choice. So our misuse of independence, meaning not having intelligence to know how to use our free will, keeps us here. If we want to try to enjoy the material world separate from Krishna, what does Krishna do? Does he turn his back to us? Does he abandon us? What does Krishna do if we want to try to enjoy separate from him?
He gives us instruction on how to turn back.
He gives us, he's the permitter, right? He's the overseer and permitter. He permits us to try to enjoy the material world. He says, if you don't want to serve me, I'm not going to abandon you. Because even our ability to enjoy matter, it requires Krishna's sanction. The living entity is so dependent that it cannot even enjoy the material world on its own. It needs the sanction of Krishna. Prabhupada says, without the, what does it read it?
Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah. Think about it. The breathing of air. You can breathe in the air, but can you control how the oxygen enters into the bloodstream and nourishes all the cells within the body? That's all arranged by the so-called science of the body, right? But who has designed that science? Right? So, every step we want to take, it requires the sanction of the Lord. So Krishna being very loving to us, he doesn't force us to serve him. If we want to serve the material nature, he will permit that and allow that to happen. But what is he doing from within and from without? Constantly speaking to us, trying to inspire us to take to a better path. Just like if we have a friend who we see is heading down a very dangerous path, what do we naturally try to do?
Protect them. Stop them.
Give them some help, instructions, guidance. My dear friend, don't do this. Right? Out of love, we care and want to see someone prevent or avoid an abominable situation. So Krishna, sitting as Paramatma in our heart, when he sees the living entity misusing its independence, Krishna does not become inimical. He doesn't become angry. Forget you, you've ignored me, fine, I know. Like a loving friend, he's constantly trying to guide us, but he'll not force us. Simply, we have to come to the decision on our own with knowledge. So, our position as maintained is clear as day. It's undeniable. We are maintained. At least at a bare minimum, say we are maintained by powers beyond me. Maybe it's nature, right? We can, maybe someone might want to debate, well, how do we know nature is arranged by Krishna? Well, of course, that's factually correct. But at least at a bare minimum, one can acknowledge that our position in this world is maintained by someone. Just like when we enter the world, think about that. We cannot even get to our first birthday without the maintenance of somebody else. Right? Without the love of a mother in any species, most species, without the love of a mother, the child will never reach its first birthday. It's fully maintained, right, by his mother. So we've had experience of this position, very practically. But as we grow, our false ego leads us to conclude that we are the independent enjoyer. And the result of that consciousness is that we struggle with the frustrations of trying to enjoy the material world. Because it's like a fish trying to enjoy out of the water. No matter what you do, it's not going to find happiness. Because it's not its natural environment. The natural environment of a living entity is to render loving service to Krishna. That is the natural environment. Regardless of, how much we may try to find other means, that's an eternal fact. So, by hearing the instructions of Paramatma, then one can find a blissful eternal life of knowledge. One has to know how to find this bliss and happiness. So recognizing that there is a transcendental enjoyer. We are not our independent enjoyer. And then understanding our relationship with that independent enjoyer. And that relationship is one of great friendship. Krishna has extraordinary love for us. The only question is, when are we going to reciprocate that love back? His love is never ending. Even when we left the spiritual world to come here, he came with us and took residence in our heart as Paramatma. And Prabhupada opens this paragraph by reminding us that we are not equal to Paramatma. There's a reason we are Atma and Krishna is Paramatma. We are Purusha and Krishna is Purusha Paraha. We are limited. We are limited in our Atma, the living entity. And Krishna is unlimited. And so we should not mistake that they are one. Even though they are of one quality, they are not of one in quantity. So simultaneously one and difference. So if we have this knowledge that I am not the independent, then everything becomes resolved. But this misunderstanding of my thinking that I am the independent enjoyer leads to our encasement within this material body, and thus we enter into the cycle of birth and death, old age and disease, and all the difficulties of material. So this is a fundamental understanding. And Krishna says then in the next verse, one who understands this philosophy, considering the material nature, the living entity, the interaction of modes of nature, is sure to attain liberation. He'll not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So here's the result of this knowledge. One becomes free, seeing things as they are. And that is the great fortune we have by studying this Bhagavad Gita presented by Srila Prabhupada to all of us. Okay. Any questions or comments for today?
I see so much misuse. So many people are misusing their.
We saw the misuse of independence just 2 days ago.
I know, I was just thinking.
But we see what happens when there's lack of knowledge, right? Lack of knowledge leads to actions that seem so easily understood to be crazy, insane. But when you are convinced in a field of knowledge that is unjust, you don't see it that way. And thus it leads to very ridiculous activities like we saw a couple nights ago. But those individuals were convinced unequivocally that they were right. They were convinced. So it shows that when we are guided by poor knowledge, it leads to disaster. But the opposite is also true. When one is guided by this perfect knowledge, this Raja Vidya, the king of all knowledge, then one can find perfection in life. So this knowledge is the key to shaping the activities, leading to success. Everybody is acting according to conviction of the knowledge they have. The problem is, the knowledge one has, if it's not coming from the Supreme Lord, is fraught with shortcomings.
There's so much misinformation. We talk about getting the right information at the right source.
Yeah. Knowledge is not shortage. Just go to Google. There's lots of knowledge out there. But what is bona fide knowledge? That is the key.
So Krishna has 64 qualities, right? And he is Paramatma, and then like the Jiva has a certain number of 50 qualities, and so forth. Like Lord Shiva has another
55.
set of 55, like that.
Vishnu
So
has 60 and Krishna has 64.
So
Up to. The living entity has up to 50, but not in full quantity.
So when we say we're same in quality, but not in quantity, but qualities are different too, right?
There are unique qualities that Krishna possesses that others do not, but we share many similar qualities. But there are certain qualities, Krishna himself has 4 qualities that even Lord Vishnu does not have. The beauty, his rupa madhurya, his flute, venu madhurya, like the sound of his flute, his pastimes, his lila madhurya are very unique, and his associates, his devotees. So those 4 qualities are unique to Krishna. But the qualitative oneness is in the sense that we share many similar qualities, 50 of the 64.
We were just reading about that. Okay.
Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.